Also.
Thank you. Okay, good morning. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Southborough Board of Health meeting. Calling the meeting to order on Tuesday, March 12th, 2024 at 11:01 a.m. Currently, we have 2 out of the 3 board members. Dr. Zaluka and I are on, and I expect Dr. Medina. Okay. First order of business is public comment. I don't see anybody in the audience, so we'll skip that. Approval of minutes from the 2/13/24 meeting. Any comments on those, Liz?
No, they looked good.
Okay, so I'll move that we approve the 2/13/24 meeting minutes as presented.
I second and vote aye.
And Malinowski's aye. Okay, the next set of minutes is related to executive session, so we're going to approve them but not release them yet. And so there's 4 dates on there. If we have any changes to any of those, then we'll hold them for another executive session.
No, I reviewed them all, I think last night or this morning.
Yeah, a little late,
And
but
I know it worked. Everything looked good.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think the minutes look good, just we're not releasing them, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So I move that we approve and not to release executive session minutes for the following dates: January 22nd, 2024, January 29th, 2024, February 5th, 2024, and February 13th, 2024.
Yep. Second, and I vote aye.
And Malinowski's aye. Okay, great. So town meeting. Safdar's here. I'm just going to bring him over. So I just got a list of the motions for town meeting last night, and we're on there for the opioid settlement. So we will be making that motion. And I think this is obviously, so it is proposed to be on the consent list, hopefully. I said I was fine with that. Good morning, Safdar. Sorry, I had another screen up, so I didn't see you come over. So if it's on consent and it gets approved, then obviously there'll be no motion for it on town meeting floor. But if there is if it is held, then we would have to make the motion. So who would like to make the motion? Safdar.
Yeah. So what would the motion entail?
Okay. Yeah.
Just show me through the process part of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you would do is you'd stand up and you would read the motion that is in the warrant, or I don't even know. I don't even think it's printed in the warrant, but I will tell you what it says. You would just say, I move the article as it's printed in the warrant. That's actually what you would do. And then somebody would second it. And if it got held off the consent agenda, then presumably the person who held it would ask a question about why they held it. I think one question that could come up is, are you raising taxes for this? And the answer is no. The state has already granted us this money. Or they could ask, what programs are you going to do? And then Taylor's going to talk a little bit about the process for that later. Not going to talk about that.
I was going to say I won't be present, but
no. In this meeting, you're going to tell.
Oh, yes. Okay, great.
So we'll be educated enough to speak for that. So Safdar, it's really fielding the questions, and I think this would be appropriate for you to. So you're cool with that?
Yeah, absolutely. When do you, I plan to be there, but I'll look up what article number we're at.
It's 33, I think.
I have it up right now. It's 32.
32.
Yeah, I was just looking at it too. So what does that? Yeah, timing wise, what does that mean?
Great
Rough
question.
estimate. Like definitely not until noon. Anytime between noon and 6 p.m. Like what's our
I mean, they're not breaking, so they're starting at 10 and going straight through. I mean,
but they put some of the more hot
petitions.
button topics in the front. So I would say afternoon if I have to guess, but we could fly through things.
So how about this? How about we tentatively plan on Safdar doing it? And then Safdar, if you're leaving, just make sure one of us is still there to move it. I mean, I'm planning on being there. And then if it passes on consent, then
we're done.
We're good. I'm just worried that people don't know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just have a question about it, sorry.
Yeah, go
Are
ahead.
we're okay with the language, because it is a little different. It says appropriation from free cash for substance abuse abatement activities.
Oh, you know what? I have the motions. I don't have the warrant. Hold on.
This is on this is what's on the articles.
Hold on. So this is on the actual, this isn't on the description. This is on the actual article.
Yeah,
Taylor?
but let me just confirm that, but yes. Because I saw it on the blog.
So
let
this
me-
is what I sent for the article warrant wording to vote.
Sorry, where would I find it on here? Under moderator?
No, it'd be under clerk.
Thank you. Oh. Town clerk.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's under, do you mean the warrant?
Yeah,
It'll probably be in the most recent select board packet.
okay,
Sorry.
that's okay. Agenda. March 4th.
Probably, it should be.
Agenda packet supplement packet second revision.
Go to second revision.
Sorry, I have to scroll through this. Okay, here we go. It is appropriation from free cash for substance abuse abatement activities.
Wait,
That's how it's worded.
okay. Are you in the actual article though, or are you the title of the article?
That's the title of the article, but I'm
Oh,
just pulling up the.
okay.
What
I was
number
more
did you
focused
say
on
it
the
was?
verbiage.
42,
32.
32.
Wait, what are you asking me? Sorry.
What number is it? Did I say?
It's 32. So,
Okay.
um,
Sorry.
no, that's
32.
okay. So,
So to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of blah, blah for the use of the Board of Health to provide for substance abuse abatement activities following the town's participation in the statewide opiate settlements negotiated by the Mass Attorney General to meet said appropriation of the sum to be transferred from free cash or
Yes.
do or act anything in relation thereto.
so that's the language I had sent. And
Okay.
that's what, similar to what Northborough had sent last year.
Okay, it's the title is funny, but if that's the motion, then I think that's fine.
So the motion is to move the article as printed in the warrant.
Yes.
Which then refers to the warrant.
Okay, I think that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think it went to print anyway, so.
Okay, so
I don't know
there
if
we
you
go.
have a choice. But I think it's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so, and then if there's any questions on the budget, I'm happy to stand up on the budget piece. I'm guessing that will be earlier in the meeting, so, probably before noon.
It's like number like 2 or 3. It's pretty high up.
Yeah, so I'm happy to speak to that. Anything else on town meeting?
Yes, actually.
Okay.
We are doing our annual award. Safdar has offered to, well, I asked Safdar to present it, so thank you very much for doing that. I won't be there to present it, but the awards we're told we're ready, so I'll be picking them up this week and I'll give them to you, Chelsea.
Okay,
Yeah, so
great.
looking forward to that.
Okay. Thank you, Taylor and Safdar. Okay. All right, next is Greater Boroughs for Public Health Partnership for the Health IMA. So this is just an update. We did not have a quorum when we met with the Greater Boroughs last time. So unfortunately, we were not able to move forward with the IMA. We have another meeting tomorrow. Part of the challenge is that when Kristen Black left, there's no Northborough rep, and the Northborough meeting had gotten canceled the night before because of snow. So hopefully that meeting is happening tonight for Northborough, and they'll have a representative tomorrow, and hopefully all towns will be there. But just to understand the process, the draft IMA has gone to Northborough Town Council and come back. And then anybody on the greater boroughs had access to the attorney that was working on it. So I did send a few questions to him. Hopefully we'll have a final draft tomorrow out of that meeting. And then everybody will bring it to each of the remaining 3 towns. Will bring it to their town council for review. Come back, make sure there's no issues with that. And then every town will bring it to their select boards and boards of health for sign off. Okay, Heather, do you want to do the FDA
Sure.
retail standards?
I'm ready.
Okay,
Do you want to share? Do you want me?
you can share if you want.
Then I'll need the sharing.
Barbara, you want to give,
Co-host, like if I'm a co-host, right?
will you give Heather co-host versus me, please?
So I'll be presenting the risk factor study, which is part of FDA Retail Standard 9. That's on the docket for this year. All right. Good morning. I want to present our risk factor study results here at the Board of Health meeting. The FDA retail standards were actually started in about 1999, a very long time ago. It's a voluntary program for municipalities and other regulatory agencies in food to improve, basically the end result is to improve food safety in their jurisdiction. So as mentioned before, I think we enrolled in this in 2021 when I was first here, and this is basically our 3rd year henceforth working on advancing retail standards in town. The first year is for what's called a self-assessment and a CSIP to see where we were. I'll show you here are the 9 retail standards. Last year, we worked and met standards 1, 3, and 7. They don't have to go in any order. As you see, it's up to the jurisdiction how they want to proceed with them. And I personally think standard 7 is very important because that's industry and community relations, where we're expanding education and interaction with food establishment owners and managers, as well as community. So that's in part where we took standard 7 last year as one of our first standards to reach. And then when standards are reached, there's maintenance work, okay? So for example, with standard 7, we'll be doing sort of annual outreach with education to community as well as food establishment owners. That being said, this year, we set out to partially reach standard 9, and that's what this will be, the presentation. We're also scheduled to reach standard 5 this year. And then we have 2 standards where we're going to do partial work on reaching. The program standard 9 is a self-improvement. It's kind of analyzing your data, seeing as a baseline where you are, and that's what I'll present in the study. And then they're using the data for your kind of biggest concerns in the town establishments, then targeted interventions will be done. So we'll be working on that in the future in terms of interventions, and then subsequently in a few years, we'll do another risk factor study to see our progress, hopefully. The benefits of enrollment, it's free to enroll. It's voluntary, but it does strengthen your food protection program by reaching these voluntary standards. As it says here, it lowers the risk of foodborne illness outbreak, which is your ultimate goal, by working on procedures, protocols, and standards for our food establishments. There is, as most of you know, also funding that's partnered with FDA and NEHA recently to work towards advancing these standards. So we have also taken advantage of that in town. Here's going to be presentation of our baseline risk factor study. And just so you know, this study data is fairly actually easy to obtain now that we use our food software. That was part of our Greater Boroughs Partnership for Health grant that the towns purchased via Relevant, the Food Code Pro. And doing the inspection in that sort of software actually helps you meet some regulations because of using the software and citing violations as you go and taking pictures as you go, as well as providing a repertoire for data that can be used for this study. Now, the study and food safety in general focus on the risk factors. The CDC with surveillance for the past 20 years has looked at, food outbreak or food illnesses and looked at kind of the antecedent events involved. So this is through many decades of collecting data on food outbreaks, what about potential causes. So they've focused on 5 areas of food safety that then correlate to specific violations, which we'll see. So the 5 areas, just so that you know, that these are shown to kind of decrease food outbreak as well as increasing food safety, would be personal hygiene, hand washing and such for employees, improper food holding time and temperature. So food needs to be cooked to a certain temperature. That's one's a little lower. Inadequate cooking can be a concern, but you have to reach temperature, on various meats and egg products. And then there's cold holding and hot holding. So you need to maintain food at proper temperatures. Another big one is contaminated equipment and protection. And this can occur even in the refrigerator if potentially something drips into another container. Contamination can occur with a meat grinder, knives not properly sanitized. So this is a big one as well. Inadequate cooking, I mentioned, because it's similar to reaching temperature. And then food from unsafe sources. Okay, so the food industry kind of tracks where sources came from. And this is what eventually comes out as a recall. If you're getting your product from certain sources that are then found to be unsafe, then they declare a recall. Anyways, we did not have much problem with this. This in particular, in Southbury, we do have 2 restaurants with sushi, and we do want to follow closely where that seafood is coming from, and that has been appropriately followed in town. Okay, so when we looked at our food establishments, we break them into different categories. So we have the category of institutional, which at this point is our schools, both public and private. We no longer have sort of that big facility that used to package meals for seniors. So we just have schools in our institutional food services. Then our second category is restaurants, and our restaurants are full service, and our restaurants are fast food, sort of like pizza establishments. And in general, the full service restaurants are cooking to order. They're cooking many different meal options. So it's not surprising that you'll see that there's a little increase in number of violations for the full service restaurants who are doing a lot more in terms of food preparation and food holding and food delivery. Okay, so we're going to review the results. When we do an inspection, we either say something is in compliance or out. Okay, so this is reviewing the in compliance, and this is reviewing our schools, which, to get to the punchline, the schools had excellent outcome in our study. So the foods in both elementary and secondary schools from these 5 sources were nearing 100%. They were all, I think, 90%. Yep. There was a couple violations noted on things such as hygiene or washing or contaminated equipment, but these are extremely, we're looking for at least, we want everything to at least 80%, and our schools met this requirement. Restaurants. Okay, so as I mentioned before, we broke restaurants into a faster food, simpler kind of preparation versus our full service restaurants. And this is where we were seeing some increased number of violations in area such as improper holding time and temperature. Okay, if we have refrigerators in restaurants, we're going to check their actual temperature. When they're preparing different items and they're holding things at either hot or cold back in the kitchen, we're going to be checking the temperature meeting safety requirements. So that is a violation we saw more often than we would like to see. Poor personal hygiene was in particular had to do with hand washing, and I'll get to that. In other aspects, it was well covered. And then contaminated equipment, again, protection from contamination, having sanitizer out and ready and appropriately cleaning, like I said, the equipment as well as the surfaces. Okay. This is a summary of what we just saw. And again, I had mentioned the in compliance for our 5 risk factors, which, translates to many different potential violations, but the violations are for some of them, you can align into these 5 categories. Our schools, both public and private, had a excellent rate of compliance with when found at the time of inspection. The fast food restaurants and then the full service restaurants have room for improvement. And we were going to discuss some of the particular things that we were seeing. And as I said before, this is in particular at the full service restaurants. Hand washing. And what that often involves is that there is a requirement for a hand washing sink, dedicated sink. And does that sink have soap available? Does that sink have, paper towels available and somewhere just to throw away your paper towels? And does that, when you turn on the water, run warm water to wash your hands in? So at times, I think a number of these were the actual kind of hand washing sink availability and stocked. Okay. And then food contact surfaces and date marking. Date marking would be holding in the refrigerator, the leftovers or semi-prepared food, how long that can be maintained. Any questions here? All right.
Sorry, I have a question. I couldn't get off
Yes.
mute.
There we go.
Is this data all from Food Pro?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the time period on this?
This is the year 2023.
Okay. And what do we do for remediation on these items that were not in compliance?
Right. So at the time of inspection is the first time where you want to address these violations. So, if it's something, Michael will talk to them, say about, getting hand washing, and then he'll often go back a week later and then check those high priority items. Okay. So it's kind of different than what's on here, but there's kind of priority, foundation, and core. So if it's a priority violation, he will go back within the week to make sure that they are addressing that. So these are violations found, but like I said, he does go back and for the priorities, make sure those are taken care of sort of either on spot, that day. Some of them can be taken care of that day, hey, this is out of date, that's thrown away, So it's either that day or he'll follow up within a week for priority. And then, for the sort of longer term, that's where we're working on. We started last year with the industry. We send them newsletters on food safety. This is what we're seeing at food inspections. That's what we did on our 2023. Part of Standard 7 is doing a forum. We did a Zoom forum for our food establishment owners and talked about the contamination and the hand washing, because we knew that's what, even prior to pulling the actual data, that's what we were seeing most often was with the hand sink and contaminated surfaces. So education. And then I think you know that we also do the risk based inspection schedule. So that, might be twice a year, on the fast food establishments, but our 6 full service restaurants, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. Okay. Because we know that those have more complex food preparation or they have more violations. So every year, Michael and I go through how often that a restaurant should be inspected. So we've definitely increased the frequency of inspection for these full service restaurants. That
And have we seen improvement over time?
I mean, that's what this study is supposed to do. This is 2023, and hey, we'll check again in a couple years. But in terms of Michael, I think he says, every time I go in, there is progress. How's that?
Okay. Thank you.
So this is our summary, as we said before. I mean, like I said, this is new data, that we could pull it for our 2024 study from the 2023 data, and the schools are exceeding the national average in all these categories. Fast food restaurants did very well. Full service restaurants did, well in some areas. They are tracking food and unsafe food sources. There are doing things, but there is work to be done in the holding, time and temperature, and date marking, and the contamination, the sanitizer, and the cleaning of the equipment, as well as the personal hygiene. Like I said, is mainly the availability of hand washing supplies that are up and in stock. So that would be, this is the last slide. So we're going to be working further. Let's see, with the biannual food safety newsletter, we started that last year. We're also going to do we're going to do a forum with the establishment owners to review this information. And we're going to kind of target that area with the hand washing and make that a priority. Safdar has a question.
Go ahead, Safdar.
Just a couple of things. So first, well, thank you for doing this. This is really very good information to have, moving forward. With regards to temperature, is there any requirement for them to keep logs or not, or to monitor temperature in a fridge or a freezer? That's my first question. And the second question, and I don't know how this fits into those 7 categories, is, looking for, pest control, whether it's insects or mice or things like that.
Pest control is definitely a violation. It's not directly one of these risk factors, but it is definitely part of the inspection, if you will. I mean, I think, contaminated, if you literally have, pests right there in the food, that would be a priority. But in general, it's more that you're seeing in the basement or somewhere, evidence of pests. That's not a priority. So, but it is something still. And then in terms of the, there's a lot of requirements for the holding. So a couple things, it starts even in the refrigerator, that we tell them to get a thermometer in the refrigerator, and that you also are storing items above each other appropriately so that there's not the risk for contamination. You're putting a ready to serve salad on the top shelf. you know, so that something that we're above, it's not gonna drop on something that's gonna be served right away. For holding, I mean, one of the biggest things, like the sushi and the sushi rice, so that they keep logs for, because that's being held at room temperature. It has to be acidified and they have to check that every day, and that they keep the logs for. And so those ones, the two of those, we did the, that's called the HACCP plan and the variants for those. Now, for the, yes, for the, there are, time and temperature control, and we actually did that with one of our restaurants, Nan's, and that has to do with, you know, you can hold for so many hours at room temperature, because it can be hold, you know, cold is, you know, 40 or below, or hot is 135 and up, you know, can be hold longer. But for served product, it has to be within hours. So yes, they have that.
Heather, do you have the data that you use to compile this, like more detail that you can just send out to the board?
Okay, yeah, I mean, that'll, like I said, we have a consultant who helps us with us, so, but yes, so I don't personally right now have that data.
Okay.
But yes, I've seen
That'd be
it.
great. Okay,
That's
thank
it.
you. Any other questions for Heather? Okay, thank you, Heather. Okay, next is the tobacco permit fees.
Okay, so I sent an email to the board about this. As you know, we updated our regulations at the end of 2022 and implemented those starting January 2023. And in that time, we did that shift from biannual to annual permits, which I think was big. I don't know anyone who does biannual, but it was shifted to annual. And then this year, I'm recommending increasing our tobacco permit fees. There are 2 other towns in our 14-town district that do have 250 as their annual fee, so it's not in any way precedent setting. I personally, I know that's maybe not a reason to raise fees, but I will say that our old inspector did do a compliance rate one year for underage sales, and we only have 9 permittees, so you can't even compare apples and oranges because it's so small. But we have had a number of failed compliance checks, which is a lot of work for the department. A lot of work, you know, we send out violation letters. I go inspect the establishments when there's a suspension of sales, because that goes along with the underage sales, that there's a suspension of sales. So we have to go check they're not selling products. So it is a lot of work, and we've had failures. I know it's not everyone, but we've had a significant number of failures in work from our department.
So every time we have a failure, is there a fee? I know the FDA,
Yes,
no,
yes.
but.
No,
Okay.
not the FDA, but for
No,
we had
understood.
2 failures in 2023.
Yeah.
And one was a first time failure, and the time period is 3 years. The second one was a second failure within 3 years. Okay, so we had 2 failures in 2023. One was a first time, and one was a second time. And so there is a fine, as well as a sales suspension of all tobacco products. So the first time is 3 days and the second time is 7 days. So yes, we implemented those in February of last year, and that is our regional tobacco inspector has, you know, 15, 16 towns. Right, we kind of went for that enforcement.
So what are you proposing?
So
to
I
change it to?
proposed 250. It's up to you. I think I sent there's a list with the
Yeah,
with the amount in other towns.
so, and I have the list in front of me, so.
Yeah.
There's 2 other towns out of
Mhm.
the, I don't know, 13 or so that are here,
14.
that are 250 and 255. Everybody else is 200 or below. So just to kind of,
Right.
this would be, we would be one of 3.
Correct.
Out of the list here. That
What
would
are
be-
we now?
we're at
200.
Which seems to be the average here, or the median, I guess. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 that are at 200, Westboro's at 100. Sudbury and Ashland are the ones that are 250 and 255.
Do we know when they implemented that? Just curious.
Which ones?
The fees, you mean?
The
Like-
higher fees?
You mean Sudbury and Ashland? I believe have been there for a number of years because this list, Pari, who's our current inspector, did for me. And I think Olivia had done one a couple years ago. I believe Ashland's been there for a couple years because I believe it was on the list as well. I don't remember if Sudbury was, but they're not brand new. Let's put it that way.
So Liz Safdar, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm not like jonesing, I think, to raise the fee because I think we're in alignment with the other places, but I also don't see a problem with bringing it up to 250. I mean, we want to be strict, I think, and so I guess I'm amenable.
Safdar?
Likewise, I think, again, we want to send that message that we definitely are strict about our tobacco sales, and I think that would align with it. And we're not really going way above anybody else. We're headed in the direction that other towns have already gone. So.
And this is annual in November, just FYI. They do their permitting.
Okay. Can we vote this without doing a hearing?
Well, I asked the state, they said we can vote without doing a hearing on this. They said
Okay.
you could invite them, but you don't have to.
Because it's not part of the regulation. It's just the fee structure. Okay. Okay. I'm kind of like agnostic to it. I mean, it's 9 established, it's
Right, and it's not till November, so you can do whatever.
right. I mean, we can vote today or we can, if you want to. What do you guys want to do?
I'd say we just vote today since we're already talking about it. And then we can.
Okay. All right, so I'll move that the Southborough Board of Health increase the tobacco annual permit fee to $250 from $200 for November of 24.
Great. I second. 24, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I second the motion and vote.
Zuluk votes aye.
Okay, Malinowski is aye. All right. Thank you. Next is 98 Southville
update.
Road. So we're bumping up against time. So if you can,
Oh, yep,
Make this
very, very quickly. So our court ordered our smoke detectors and heat, unfortunately, not progress on the furnace. And I went and did the carbon monoxide monitor, and today at 1 p.m. I've lined up Dano and Michael and the owner and the tenant. We're doing the second side. One side has smoke detectors. We're hoping to complete all smoke detectors in the various units today at 1 p.m. And then the owner, when I talk with him, he says, I need to focus on assistance for the mortgage because he is 4 months behind. And then also, just so you're aware, 98R, they had a separate court proceeding, and they sued to require Mr. Haskins to perform all repairs for the violations. As you know, our court order is with the heat, and the judge has ruled, this is very recent, yesterday, that the court was last week, that he has a separate court order for all violation repair in 98R.
okay. So you'll continue to keep us updated. Okay, thank you. Taylor, opioid settlement community outreach survey.
Okay, so I think most of us know that with the opioid settlement funds, once we receive them, part of the deal, if you will, with getting the money is that you have to solicit community feedback from persons affected by opioid misuse or substance misuse, and to see how basically it's a community needs assessment related directly towards opioid use. We got word, which we still have to wait for our IMA to be completed that until we could vote, but we did get word that we can use our shared services Greater Boroughs funds potentially to contract someone to do these surveys for us, which I think is great because we would be able to hire a company that does this kind of work every day, instead of us trying to figure out a way to do this. So the process is we would have to vote to approve this at Greater Boroughs in an upcoming meeting, but I think hopefully that should go well. I know Northborough also for sure is interested in doing the same. And we would potentially solicit feedback with both towns combined. After that survey is completed, then we can proceed to start to work with other key stakeholders in the town to spend our money how we see fit. Anything else you want to add, Chelsea?
No, the only thing I'll add is, I think it makes sense to do Northborough with the survey because I think one of the potentials of this money is that we would do something at the middle schools and we would want to do it in both towns.
Right.
Given that they all feed into Algonquin together. So I think that's really why, part of the reason why we would do it with Northborough and potentially not the other two in boroughs.
Any questions there before I move on? Okay. Body art regulations update. I just wanted to give a brief update because I know we had talked about doing these regs shortly after I took on revamping our regulations. The Boston Health Commission reached out to multiple towns to see if we could kind of form a group that would be interested in updating the regs for Massachusetts, or at least have consistent regulations across the board. We had a meeting about a month ago, just a kickoff meeting to see areas of concern in the current state guidance, which is not an official adopted guidance. It's just an outline for how you could do your regs in each town. There's a lot of language in it that I personally am not a huge fan of, and I know other towns feel the same way. Boston's is kind of like the gold standard and covers a lot of body art regulations, some that would not be applicable to us, like expos, things like that. So we have actually another meeting today at noon. And so I just wanted to let the board know that I am working on those, but it's been slower because I do want to get the input from other towns so that we can, hopefully the goal is to have uniform standards across the board instead of each town adopting their own regulations. Any questions there? Okay, and then camp updates. We did update and the board approved last, I believe, fall to approve our new documents for camp regulations, which still follow the state. And those are up on our website. Thank you to Barbara who worked on that. And they went out to all of the camps that we have historically had in the past. And I did talk to one person who said, thank you so much for fixing the application. It's much more user-friendly. So good feedback, and those are live. So again, thanks to Barbara for working on those and getting them on the website.
Thank you, Barbara. Taylor, so you're in the middle. People are applying now for camp, and what's the time frame?
I've had a few people reach out just to let us know that we're having camps. They have to submit their applications 90 days in advance prior to camps. Usually I start getting things about April.
Got it. Great. Thank you. Okay, next, this is just FYI. Once the IMA is complete, so this is a request for a select board meeting. Once the IMA is complete, we still need to deal with 200 Southville as well for meeting with select board. So I'd like to couple those two items together. Given that the IMA wasn't done as quickly as we were hoping. I'm thinking it's going to be April 23rd select board meeting. I don't know if that works for you guys. or not, but I just wanted to put it on your radar. It could get pushed depending on how the IMA goes. But I don't think it's going to happen for the first April meeting. So I just wanted to give you a heads up if you're able to attend that. And they usually have a hybrid option. So joining remotely works too.
I'll be out of town on the 23rd.
Okay.
Just as a heads up, so I won't be able to join.
Okay, no problem. All right, and then if you're available, there's a personnel board meeting tomorrow morning. I posted an agenda for it. If you're not available, it's fine. I just didn't want to have a quorum and then have to ask somebody to leave or me leave or whatever. So that's posted. There should be a Zoom link available for that too. And then our next regularly scheduled meeting is April 23rd, 2024 at 11 a.m. Do we want to pick May? So, May 14th is election day, so we can't do that. Do you want to do May 21st?
Yep, I'm free anytime between 10:30 and 12 that day.
Saftar?
Oh my gosh, excuse me.
You're muted, Saftar.
Oh,
Pulling up my calendar.
Okay.
Just to make sure I don't,
Taylor, Heather?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay,
yeah, May 21st works for me too.
okay. So you want to do 10:30 or 11?
I'm free either. I
Liz, you want to do 10:30 just so that is that better for you? Alright.
Either's fine. I mean, I'll be in the office.
that's fine with me too.
So let's do 10:30. Okay, perfect. And then obviously we have town meeting. Okay, great. And we still don't have any public, so we won't do public comment. So I move that we adjourn at 11:47.
I second the vote aye.
Zulik, aye.
And Malinowski's aye. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
you.
Thanks, guys.